In light of a Georgetown postdoctoral fellow being detained by ICE and put into an ICE detention facility today, I would like to remind everybody of something. And let's add to that the illegal deportation back to Lebanon of a transplant surgeon and medical school professor here in the United States on a legal work visa for no reason whatsoever. Oh, and let's add to that the illegal apprehension and detention of Mahmoud Khalil, who has committed no crimes. He just said something that this regime doesn't like. He is a green card holder, a permanent resident of the United States, and his wife, an American citizen who is 8 months pregnant, was threatened illegally with ICE detention as well. And let's add to that as well the 3 plane loads of Venezuelans that were removed from this country and illegally incarcerated without due process in an El Salvadoran prison notorious for human rights violations. They were whisked away. This is the shove them in the back of an unmarked van and ship them to El Salvador kind of thing. And they're claiming that these folks are gang members, but their families have come out and said, like, no, they're not. And we can prove to you that we're not. And when asked to provide evidence in court to a judge that these folks were Venezuelan gang members, the Trump regime could not do that. And let's be clear, even if they were, they are still entitled to due process. They were not deported back to Venezuela. They are being incarcerated in a prison in El Salvador that is being, that illegal action, that human rights violation is being funded by our tax dollars. The Trump regime is paying El Salvador millions and millions and millions of dollars to do that. Of our tax dollars, your tax money, my tax money. Okay, so now that we've covered that, that's just so far in the last week, I want to remind folks of something that Marco Rubio said back in February. And when he said it, I had a little bit of a mentee beat. It was a giant, flaming, sirens were going off. It was not a red flag. It was very, very concerning to me. This came out February 2024 in the AP. The article is by Matthew Lee. This is when U.S. Secretary of State and future Trump fall guy Marco Rubio went to El Salvador to negotiate these contracts of using our taxpayer dollars to use their prisons. So again, this is the beginning of February. This is just days into the Trump regime. The brand new Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, which unfortunately both of my senators voted to confirm him, he got lots of confirmation votes from Democrats because they're like, Marco Rubio, he was one of us. He's a good guy. That good guy negotiated a contract with El Salvador to whisk away people to an El Salvadoran prison. Folks of any nationality, including Americans, American citizens. Rubio left the door open for American citizens, political dissidents, to be whisked away without due process into an El Salvadoran prison. We can send them, and he will put them in his jails, Rubio said, of migrants of all nationalities detained in the United States. I'm going to remind you that being an illegal immigrant is not a crime. It's not a crime. It's not punishable by prison. It is punishable by being deported back to your home country. You just get sent back home. Being whisked away to a country that is not the United States, it's not you being sent back to your own home country. You are sent to a foreign country, a foreign prison system known for its human rights violations, where you will be kept under unknown conditions for unknown durations of time, denied due process. That is a massive human rights violation. That is not how we do things in America. That is undemocratic with a small d. I do not know how every single member of Congress is not up in arms about what is happening now. And I understand why a lot of Americans might not be, because they're being told these are violent criminals. These are basically terrorists. And they're not looking back to February 4th, where Marco Rubio himself said, oh, we're going to do this to Americans too. We're ramping up. Right? That's how propaganda works. That's how political rhetoric like this works. They put the frog in the pot of cold water and they slowly turn up the temp so you don't realize you're getting boiled until it's too late. Yeah, this will be happening to American citizens. They have already said that is their plan. They have just not turned the heat up enough. They're getting you accustomed to this way of doing things, to this violation of due process. But this is not how we do things in America. And every member of Congress should be up in arms, should be making bold declarative statements about how this cannot happen here. Okay, so Rubio said, we can send them and he will put them in jails. He said that of all migrants of all nationalities. He's also offered to do the same for dangerous criminals currently in custody and serving their sentences in the United States, even though they're U.S. citizens and legal residents, right? He went on to open the door to shipping U.S. citizens out of the country and incarcerating them in El Salvador. And I promise you, what they mean is political dissidents. They mean people who speak up against the Trump regime. What we're watching with the postdoc who was arrested today, what we are watching with Mahmoud Khalil, is they are starting with political dissidents that have green cards and visas, and they will move to political dissidents that are American citizens. And members of Congress are not outraged about it. They are letting it happen. They could stop this at any time, and they are not. By the way, at the time that Marco Rubio said this, Musk tweeted about it and said he thought it was a great idea. I read an article earlier today in the New York Times, and I'll probably talk about it more in depth in another video, about why it is so concerning how Trump is disregarding the rulings of the court, particularly in this specific area, why that is such a huge concern. But one of the things that they talked about at the end of the article was how if even 10 or 12 GOP members of Congress broke off and spoke out against what Trump was doing, the way he's defying court orders, the way he is violating due process, that this would be over very quickly. That we know that when the legislative branch backs up the judicial branch and their legal actions and upholds their constitutional role and speaks out against executive overreach, that the executive branch will back off. That we need the legislative branch to uphold the rule of law and the Constitution and support the judicial branch. And they're not right now, because every single GOP member of Congress is either corrupt or they're a coward, right? They're either a gutless wonder or they're a fascist. And we need this gutless wonder pile right here to start peeling off and realize that if they come over to the Democratic side, or not even to the Democratic side, but if just enough of them peel off together, they will have power to stop what is happening. They can empower themselves. They're afraid to be singled out, but if enough of them all make that move together, there is safety in numbers and there's power in numbers. And we've got to keep the pressure on, either through town halls, holding town halls when they won't go, public outrage, calling, going and meeting with them. You have a right to meet with aides from your representative or your senator. Make an appointment, go meet with them. Comment all over their social media, all over it. Ask them why they are letting Elon Musk do this. Ask them why they are allowing Donald Trump to deny folks due process. Ask them why they are abdicating their responsibility to uphold the Constitution. Ask them why they are letting Donald Trump violate court orders, why they are letting him create a constitutional crisis, why they are allowing him to seize power as an authoritarian dictator. All of that pressure is really, really necessary. And in all of these articles that I read and all of this, the thing that keeps coming back to me over and over and over again is members of Congress are like, we don't have the power, but they do. They have the power to impeach him. They have the power to remove him from Congress. They have the power to just speak up in the press, to just have 10 or 12 of them say, this is not okay. Just to have any division whatsoever, any fractures in that MAGA wall, because we know so many of those reps in Congress that are GOP, that they are not actually they're not actually really MAGA. They just feel that they don't have any choice, or there's not enough political will for them to peel off and take a stand. And we've seen little sprinklings of it. We've seen some senators who have given pushback, and we're seeing how badly constituents are being hurt by Trump policies in these states. And we've got to keep communicating how bad this is for all of us and how we don't want this. And then I think we will continue to see more and more pressure build, and we may get that fracturing. We may get those folks to start taking a stand. But it is imperative that they do so for the sake of our democracy, for our human rights, right? For our constitutional rights. They've got to start doing that. And so we have to keep pressuring them, because they're never going to do it on their own. They're never going to grow a spine or a conscience. We have to make them fear us more than they fear Donald Trump. We have to make them fear the American people, the power of hundreds of millions of us, more than they fear a would-be dictator. But anyway, this shit that Marco Rubio said on February 4th, it should scare you, and it should prompt you to act. It should not make you paralyzed. It should prompt you to act. What they are doing this week is they are trying to get you accustomed to the idea of having due process being violated. Do not get acclimated to it. Please understand that this is unconstitutional. It is illegal, and it cannot stand. And we do not roll over for this at all. We do not let them start to turn up the pot of water on us.